This episode takes us farther into the Intrepid AI platform by working with custom nodes and running simulations. Let me show you how easy it is to do so and test your capabilities dynamically. Let's get started. In this tutorial, I'm going to introduce you to the concept of custom nodes. Custom nodes are essentially a way to refactor some functionality that you want to reuse over and over across your projects. There are two macros that are extremely important to create custom nodes, in particular the entry macro and the exit macro that define respectively the inputs and the outputs of your node. So these macros are configurable. So we can configure a macro, for example, having a flow input, and we do the same for the output. And then we can define, for example, some inputs of our node, in particular age, and which is an integer, and a name, which is a string. And what we want is building a node that formats the inputs, the integer and the name, creating a string that says something like the age of name is the age in number. So this input should have, the inputs of this node should be a variable age, which is probably an integer. Then we want a variable name, which is a string. And the output will be just a string. We call it result. So what you can see here is, in fact, a definition of the inputs and the outputs of your custom node. Now we have to implement the logic. And in this particular case, we are going to implement a very simple logic, for example, that does some concatenations, string concatenations, in which we say the age of name, and we use another concatenation that says the age of name is, it's like a separator, and of course we want the number converted to a string here that is going to be concatenated to the result of the previous concatenation. So now we can connect this output here in here, and that's pretty much our custom node. So this node will take age and name as inputs, do some internal processing, and return a string, which is the correct formatting of the age of name is the number converted to a string. So this is the implementation of our node. What we have to do next is selecting the graph and right-click Make Node. So Make Node is an operation that allows one to give a name to that new node that will be part of your library. I can call it My Age Node. And as you can see, this has been converted into an actual node that now can be connected to the rest of your graph or imported in all other graphs. As you can see, the node is here, and if you create new projects or you open existing projects, you can just insert this node as many times as you want. Now, right-clicking on this node will give us access to the internal implementation of that node. In case we are curious to see how it works internally, or in case, very likely, we want to edit a part of the logic, of the internal logic of that node. So let's try to do that. Let's try to change, for example, in a more impersonal way, printing age of name of maybe Mr. Name is the age. Another thing that we want to do, for example, is adding a new output to the node. So we can, I don't know, maybe use an integer again call it status, or maybe a boolean. That will be whatever. I'm just creating funny things for the sake of the explanation. But we have a new version of this node, of this custom node, my age node, that has a different internal logic and, of course, another output, which is a boolean. So we save this node, Control S. Now, what happens to the graph that that is importing that node? As you can see here, there will be multiple versions now of the same node. And if we choose the last one, of course, we will find the one with the new output. And we can, of course, go to the first version. The second version is an autosave, because we have autosave here. I forgot that. And so the system will back up and save checkpoints. But of course, we can disable if you don't need. You can do the same right there. So basically, you can import, well, you can use whatever is the version that you want to load of the same custom node. And of course, this can be integrated in all the other concepts that we have explained in the previous tutorials. So we can, for example, add my age, which is 43, my name, which is Francesco, and we want to print, for example, debug log. We want to print this message and trigger it. So this is a very simple capability that now is using this my age node with this version. But of course, I might want to select the last version, the one that includes also the status. And of course, as you can see, whatever has been connected and doesn't change across versions will be preserved. And of course, there is this status that we are not using, but we can, in fact, take action on that. So that's pretty much it. Now, I would like to show another important capability of custom nodes. When we go to the internal implementation of a node, there is this entry and exit macro that most likely will be kind of connected to each other and to the rest of the graph. But I created another node that actually doesn't do that. Which I call takeoff check. I double click on that. Now this is another custom node that I created for another project. Let's try to understand what it does. It has as input, the entry macro is the input, is an altitude, which is a float. It checks a condition on that float, essentially if it's greater or equal to 0.95. If that condition holds, that condition that is triggered at 5 Hertz, so 5 times in a second, we do that check. If indeed the condition is true, then we set a takeoff variable as true. Otherwise, we unset the same takeoff variable or set it at false. And then the exit of this, so basically the output configuration of this custom node, will simply look at that variable and return the value of that variable. So as you can see here, in this particular case, the entry and the exit macros are not connected with each other. They don't have to be. In this case, the entry is writing to a variable, and the exit is reading from that variable in what we call the blackboard. And this, of course, can be completely different memory spaces as well as processes, threads, ROS nodes. There is really no limitation to the way you can combine entry configurations and exit configurations. So if you go back to this, the actual node, the custom node just imported, you will see this altitude that will be a float that can be given as input or can be inserted as a constant. And the takeoff will be the result of a memory operation, which we know, of course, is coming from reading a bunch of memory from somewhere in your runtime. That wraps up this tutorial. If you like to learn more about Intrepid AI, feel free to visit our Discord channel or the documentation site. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.